This is Resident Evil 2 for the Nintendo 64. One of the things that the Nintendo 64 was infamous for was its low memory cartridge format. Every other system had switched to CDs, which were cheap and held a lot of data. Cartridges were expensive, and the more memory you put in them, the more they cost. So N64 games generally lacked full motion video cutscenes, had less spoken dialogue, and fewer audio tracks. But late in the N64's life, there was a breakthrough. Capcom was able to condense a game that took up 2 CDs on the PlayStation into a single N64 cartridge. They kept the full motion video, the pre-rendered backgrounds, the dialogue, the music, everything. You find yourself in a ravaged town, swarming with zombies and other monsters. Ammunition and weapons are difficult to come by, so you must use them sparingly and avoid confrontations when possible. The gameplay consists of exploring the town as you look for survivors, weapons, and a means of escape. To progress, you will have to find keys and solve puzzles. Most of the puzzles are pretty simple. You find an item like a medallion or jewel, and then place it in the right spot and it acts like a key. There is a lot of backtracking, and you'll spend a lot of time trying to figure out what to do. It is also possible to get to the end of the game and realize that you missed an important item early on, like the grenade launcher, and now you can't actually beat the last boss. There are 2 control modes. The default mode is called third person. With this setup, your character controls like a tank. They can move forwards and backwards, but have to stop in order to turn. The other mode, called first person, is a more traditional method, but it is still a bit stiff. The game's use of constantly changing perspectives also causes problems, because the controls are sometimes confused by the change in perspective and send you back the way you came, oftentimes directly into the jaws of the monster you are running from. The game looks great. The environments are all suitably creepy. The pre-rendered backgrounds are very detailed, and are much sharper than the pre-rendered backgrounds in other N64 games. The use of pre-rendered backgrounds also frees up a lot of the system's resources, which allows for more detailed characters. The sound is a bit muffled,
My name's Claire.
which is probably due to the compression techniques used to get the game onto an N64 cart. The music is atmospheric and pretty effective at certain moments, but it isn't very memorable. You can only save your game if you find a typewriter and you have an ink ribbon in your inventory. The typewriters are few and far between, and the ink ribbons are very limited. This is a clever way of increasing the tension, because if you can't save often, then the consequences of dying are greater. The main difficulty comes from the lack of ammunition. Well, actually there is quite a bit of ammo, but it takes a lot to finish off a zombie, since you can't just shoot them in the brain and be done with it like in real life. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Anyway.
I'm not letting anyone leave my town! Everyone's gonna die!
Do you like sci-fi original movies? If so, you'll love this game's story and writing. It has it all. Overacting, underacting, awkward dialogue, underdeveloped plot elements, 2-dimensional characterizations, and plot holes large enough to host a cage match between Sharktopus and Terracuda. You play as either Leon Kennedy, a rookie cop arriving in town for his first day on the job, or as Claire Redfield, the sister of Chris Redfield from the first game. She has also just arrived, and is looking for Chris because she thinks he might be in trouble. They soon meet up, and are attacked by people that groan, shuffle about, and try to bite them. So either there has been a zombie outbreak, or they got into town just as the bars closed.
Wait! Don't shoot!
Surprisingly, for a gory M-rated game, There isn't any swearing at all, which is great. The Nintendo 64 version has an option to reduce the amount of violence shown. Obviously, you are still shooting monsters or getting bit, but if you are killed, the screen goes black instead of showing your character getting finished off. You can also change the color of the blood shown. You can't turn it off completely, because the only way to know if a monster is truly dead is when a pool of blood appears around it. Blood still appears as a texture on zombies and other characters, as well as in the environments themselves. Even with the violence turned off, there is still a character that gets ripped in half. It looks pretty silly, but it is still a bit disturbing. Also, the zombies' bodies continue to twitch when they are dead. In Resident Evil 2, you'll come across memos, letters, and other writings that expand the story and add detail to the world. The N64 version adds a new set of these to the game. This version also adds new alternate costumes, and a mode that randomizes item placement. There are 2 minigames that can be unlocked. The first one is a short side story called The Fourth Survivor, where you play as an Umbrella Company operative. And the second is called Tofu Survivor. This was basically thrown in as a joke. The game is the same as The Fourth Survivor, but you play as a big block of tofu, and you only have a knife. The N64 version lacks the Extreme Battle Mode game from the DualShock version of Resident Evil 2 for the PlayStation. So unfortunately, there is not a definitive version of the game that has everything. There were points where I had fun, and there were a lot of points where I was frustrated. Despite being unintentionally silly, the game's story is still pretty dark, and it is not going to leave you with a good feeling when you play it. I realize that is not what most people are looking for when playing a horror game, but I look to entertainment to lift my spirits, not make me feel gloomy. For that reason, I don't recommend this game.
Leon, it's over. Just let me go.
Shut up!